Dismal conditions here at Wanneroo Park Raceway today. Dick Johnson and Mark Scaife, the front row, only seconds away from the start. A field of 20 starters. Johnson creeps just a little bit, but off the line at Scaife, who gets away smartly. Johnson pulls him in though as they head down, and a shock of a start there for Glenn Seaton. Scaife will lead them down into the first corner with Johnson tucking into second. Next is Perkins, then Richards, then Crompton. John Bow the inside, Glenn Seaton the outside, and Peter Brock right behind him as Larry Perkins gets very, very sideways on the exit to turn number 1.
There's Larry in a bit of a spin, a nudge from Jim Richards, but the two guys off the front had creeping problems again. It'll be interesting to see whether the Clark, of course, has got his eyes open today. Be interesting. Here's Larry.
There goes Alan Jones, car number 35. And down the back, you can see the pressure is on already.
Down into the gully, Mike. It'll be a big puddle at the bottom of this hill there. You can see the spray from the lead car going up.
Well, Larry Perkins made a beautiful start, but he's been caught wide here, and Jim Richards, a guy that we referred to for so many years as the Rainmaster, got up on the inside of him. Down the hill for the first time, it'll be Scaife leading from Dick Johnson. Next will be Jim Richards, Neil Crompton and the GIO Commodore, then Larry Perkins followed by John Bow, and then the first of the Peter Jackson Falcons with Glenn Seaton at the wheel.
Well, we'll expect big things from Jim Richards. He did get provisional pole in the dry yesterday, and certainly has got his car performing to the way he really wants it to go. I think just a little bit of heat into these tires, which is still necessary, even though it's cold conditions out there. The tires will get some heat into them and will respond better and better as the drivers get a couple of laps under their belt.
There goes Neil Crompton, the GIO Australia Commodore, off to a very, very good start. First time he's made the top 6 for the season, and he sits in behind Richards as they exit that turn. Back behind him is Larry Perkins, who got away smartly, but then unfortunately got a little taily out of the first turn. So Crompton comes down into the gully, as we like to call it, and this is where you have a lot of water running over the roadway.
Yeah, it's very hard to get traction coming up onto the main straight, but Crompton seems to have it under control there. Tail lights, headlights blazing. Mandatory for brake lights to be working in these conditions, of course.
Look at Jimmy Richards here, Alan on the inside of Dick Johnson. Johnson's sticking to the wide line. And as they come into the turn, there's Jim. We'll see who gets out of here the best. They rub fenders on the exit to that turn down the front straight. Richards will have the lie for the next turn. It's down the inside. You've got no business being on the outside there.
Well, this is the first time we've seen the Winfield cars actually running tandem 1-2. They've been very competitive at Mal a week ago, and we have to remember that that was just a week ago. None of the cars have been back to their base workshops for a big overhaul, so a credit to the Winfield team, the way they've unfolded over the last 2 races. And Jimmy Richards here in second place, car 2, today at Wanneroo.
I think Jim would be only too happy to go on with this one. I don't think there are team orders. They make the run downhill again to the right-hander. Car number 40 going off there at the bottom of the racetrack. That's Ian Love, one of the local boys who has joined the field along with Alf Barbagello. 17, Dickie Johnson.
No stranger to the rain. If you recall, last year at Bathurst, Dick did a superb job to come home. Some would say winner, but certainly finished well to come second at Bathurst last year. He's not frightened of the rain. But here, even Crompton having a go under brakes. The Commodores really seem to have a package here today. 4 of them were in the top 6 fastest this morning in the rain. And the Falcons just suffering a bit. It's the first time this season we haven't seen one of the blue Peter Jackson cars on camera on the opening laps of a Shell Australian Touring Car Championship.
Glenn Seaton running 7th at the moment as Larry finds John Bow up on the inside of him. There's Seaton just back behind Larry Perkins in car number 11. So Commodores 1, 2, 3 at this stage of the race. Mark Scaife leading, his teammate Jim Richards in second. And a blinder here from Neil Crompton today in the GIO Australia Commodore. He had terrible problems a week ago at Malala, had an engine that hardly pulled the skin off a rice pudding, and that had come from the factory, and they went away and did a lot of homework during the week, and obviously it's paying dividends.
No, this guy said, well, this is a business, Mike. The harder you work, the luckier you get, and people can complain about this and that, but if you put the time in and you've got dedicated staff, you can get
there goes Johnson.
Yep.
He's looped it. Dick's been fairly uncomfortable out there since this race started. He's been on almost the wrong line, and I think he's had a chassis problem the last couple of races anyway.
Not so good move by one of the Diet Coke boys. He's in the sand.
He's hit the spot. Into the bottom turn, Larry Perkins still trying to fend off Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Falcon. Tony Longhurst is the next one back behind him. and gaining on that group.
Very hard for Glenn to be able to judge the point when he can gun his Falcon. It's so easy for the tires to spin in the rain, obviously. It's the danger we all face when we're having a rainy day on our ordinary highways.
That was Paul Morris, car number 23, off there in the sand trap, but was able to keep it under control. Got it back out onto the circuit again.
But here's Perkins in the slide.
He's finally done it. He's going to back it out there, but he doesn't need to take it any further because he will bury it. It's buried.
He's gone. It reminds me of a certain Sierra one year, Michael. I don't know whether we should...
AMOBE, as I recall.
Yes.
The other end of the circuit when the rains came halfway through the race, or a quarter of the way through the race. In the meantime, Tony Longhurst in the Benson and Hedges BMW, making up a lot of ground here on Glenn Seaton's number 30 EB Falcon. Here's our race leader, car number 1, Mark Scaife, the Winfield Commodore.
Jim Richards just a fraction of a car length behind. Obviously won't be letting Mark have it all his own way, but when you have your team running 1-2, it's not too smart to put pressure on your teammate.
Here's the gap back to Neil Crompton in the Geo Australia Commodore. Next is John Bowe in the Shell Falcon, then Tony Longhurst, who has already passed Glenn Seaton, then Thomas Mazera is the next one through in the HRT machine, then Alan Jones. You can see they've spread themselves out. There's Brocky coming through in the Mobile 1 entry, and Dick Johnson, who's back up to about 10th or so in the pack. Bob Jones in the Ampol Max 3 car going through. So they've spread themselves out fairly well round Wanneroo Raceway in the west here today. Mark Scaife leads the race here today at Wanneroo Park. Heat 1 over teammate Jimmy Richards. Neil Crompton is third. John Bowe is fourth, and Tony Longhurst is now up to fifth.